I think we're
Okay, can
live.
you hear me? Can you hear me, Gary?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Superb.
Okay, so I have us. I don't know. I can't have to turn the screen away. Let me see. Am I coming in an echo right now or no? Is there
No,
an
not
echo?
at all. Perfect. Perfect sound for me.
Okay, so then I'll leave it.
Are you getting things done for 10 for live? No, no. Is it coming up?
Is it coming up and can she hear us? Okay.
Can you hear us all right? It's come up. Okay. Can you see us? Yeah, perfect. Everything's perfect.
Are you sure? I hear an echo. Am I hearing her? Okay.
No, I don't think so. I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Superb.
No, it's wrong on my side. Hold on.
Is it?
Because I'm hearing my echo. I have to turn the screen
Can you
away.
turn the volume down, darling?
Am I coming in an echo right now or no? Is there an
No,
echo?
not at all. Perfect. Is it because you're playing your
So
own
then,
self? Because we do get a slight delay, but the sound sounds brilliant here, and it
but
sounds
what?
fine on
What?
Mel's device.
But why are we hearing the echo? Okay, how about is the echo gone now?
I never had an echo, so has the echo gone for you?
Not the echo, but that recording of us talking prior, is it gone now?
It's gone. Yes.
Okay. Just I put mine on silent, so I guess that's fine. Okay, I think
Yeah.
we're good, man. I think we're good.
Superb, superb. Well, hello everybody. Welcome to Alternative Interactions. I'm Gary, and please introduce yourself.
This is Meten of Miklan of Plutonic Plains. Thanks, Gary, for inviting me this time. We did the last one on my channel. We're doing the live on my channel, but we're
Yeah, we're
gonna put
still
it on
doing a
yours.
live, but this
Yeah.
this will go up on my channel as well this time because we've kind of worked out how to do the technical stuff a bit better, hopefully. So, and
Yeah.
please, everybody, remember to like, share, and subscribe um, to Platonic Planes and Alternative Interactions. We do appreciate your support. So, I think that's the hard sell done, isn't it?
Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna just do a couple of quick things and then we'll be ready. Go ahead, Gary. Start us off with a summary, if you would,
Okay,
of what we're gonna go over today, and then I'll do a little light add to that, and then we'll progress forward.
sounds great. So, I think it was 2 weeks ago or so we did our first collab together, and that was a really awesome collab. And we went down some real rabbit holes and came up with some new ideas and sort of like fed off each other amazingly well, which was absolutely awesome. But I didn't have any images. I hadn't worked out how to do it. And so I've been practicing the last few weeks on my channel, and we actually have some images. Now, what I intend to do is to go over very briefly some of the images from last that we spoke about previously, so that you guys can actually get the visual of what we're talking about, which will also be a little reminder and freshen up for when we carry on into the part two properly. Um, and as we go into the part two, we're going to be going on the same kind of sort of way, going on to look at planets, um, energy fields, and such like. And it's hopefully
That's
going to
like
take us technical terms. You know, they love it.
very. You should have seen my description. I was like, we're gonna talk about the things and the stuff, and then more of the
And
things.
the woo and bits and pieces and the odds and the bobs. So it's great. No, and so we hope to take you on a magical mystery journey of interesting stuff. Metatron's cube again, we'll look into a bit more detail, and where that kind of leads off to potentially um, with Janus, which is quite an interesting one. And I've got some slides that kind of lead us into all of that, although they're not Janus related as such. The symbology is all there, which I think you'll quite enjoy. So, and Maten, what have you got for us?
I'm just gonna reiterate you to see if I understand. Okay, so you're gonna take us on a journey, Gary. You're gonna take us through. the sound frequencies, how they connect to the planetary rays, the seven
Yes.
color rays,
Yes.
how that connects to the two competing, not necessarily competing, but the two frequency sequences of both the Fibonacci and the Kris code, and how they overlay a little, but they're different. And then you're going to connect that to the work of Chief Ironbush and Jason Breshears,
Yep.
because they're both utilizing history as and temporalizing events. What is that term called? They're both um
Well, they're using chronology basically.
yeah, it's chronology. It's based
Yeah.
on chronology. So they're
Yeah.
chronologists. And then we're going to also connect that to the symbolism of architecture and frescoes in terms of where this fits in the constellations, because we know that the constellations chart the history as well of this plane, of this realm where we're at. And we're going to discuss a little too about how the plane or the reality which the realm which we live in is not necessarily neither flat nor globular, but rather a representation of the toroidal field.
Correct.
So in essence, it's both.
Yes.
And how that also reflects the ecliptic in astrology's grid system of longitude and latitude, and how it projects from the prime meridian, and gives us the possibility to measure and chart temporally into the future or past where the planet alignments are. And you're going to connect that to 2040, which is the Phoenix, according to our KX work, Bashir's work.
Yep.
And I don't have the chart today for the May 16th Phoenix event, but I did pull it for the September 8th planetary alignment. So maybe we'll peek at that. You're also going to connect the notes of the musical scale to the astrology chart, as well as the chart color frequencies. At least on my image, it has the colors as well. I don't know if
Yes.
yours
Yeah.
does.
Yeah. No, it does. But
Okay.
it's two separate images as such, but we can show the both how they collate, and they're both the same kind of thing fundamentally because it's all waveform, isn't it?
Got it. And then you're going to connect it to, we're going to go further down the line and connect it to the gateways into this realm and out of this realm, and how these gateways are open and closed. Maybe a little about that. Obviously, we can't really go too much into that.
No.
We can only say, we could talk about Janus,
Yes.
and we could talk about that symbolism. I have a tapestry behind me. Gary has the Flammarion, as he went over last time. I have the House of Geminus by Nightbringer. This is a tapestry of, sorry, not Nightbringer, Achilles. This is the latest black metal album by Achilles, and this is one of the art pieces for it. It's not the cover of the album. And then I will delineate some of the symbolism in relationship to Janus, the feminine, the masculine, and the gateways. And that's where we're going today. We'll see. We'll see if we can get through it all. This will probably go at least 16 hours, you know.
If
Uh,
not 20.
all right, let's do it. Start us off, Gary.
Right.
Uh,
If you want to allow me to, I think, share screen, if we just start off with
I gave it to you earlier,
yeah, yeah.
so
So if we just start off with the first part of the PowerPoint, we can I can just do a brief overview so that you guys can actually get to visualize what we were trying to talk about last time because it's so much easier with a picture. So hopefully you can see that. Can you see that, Mel? And so just asking somebody with who's
it's
behind
not
me.
share. I don't see it sharing yet.
Don't see it sharing.
Mm-mm.
So share. Ah, there we go. There we go. I think we're sharing now, aren't we?
Yes, we are.
Superb. So there we go. So what we have here So what we have here is the Kris code and the Fibonacci sequence that we discussed last time. I've got my little pointer going, and as I said to everyone last time, that if you look at a snail shell, fundamentally you would not be able to tell the difference between the Fibonacci and the Kris code because they look virtually identical. And you can see here quite easily that they do very much look identical. Um, but the key point um, that we were trying to get across last time was in axis 7, we actually have a split. And this is a timeline split that I think we're now beginning to see. And axis 7, I believe, is also linked to the 7 planetary alignment that we've just had recently. And so I don't think it's coincidence that axis 7 is the split or the beginning of the true split of the time wave or the timelines that we've got. Now, we'll go into this in more detail later, but this connects, I believe, very much to Jason Archaic's work and some of the work that Chief Ironbush has done, as well as Sonia Testament of the Tree of Knowledge, when she's spoken about this as well. And what we have is the split happening, and I think that axis 8, axis 08, is actually 2040 when I believe the Phoenix event that Jason talks about is going to happen. And obviously we can go back to this if we want, but I think that the gap between the Fibonacci sequence and the Kris code spiral will be so great that those that are on the higher vibrational frequency that have the ability to get out of here will be on the Kris code or crystal spiral, and those that are going to see the 2040 Phoenix event and the other events potentially that are going to happen um, within the last quarter of this segment that we're in currently, and we'll go into that in detail later, um, will be in this Fibonacci, which is actually the daisy of death. So again, everyone, you can screenshot that or pause the video, and so you can actually have a good look at that and try and see that in the future. Did that make sense, Maten?
I have a couple of questions, not necessarily for you, but just to put out there.
Yep.
One is when you said that at this year the planetary alignment occurred, and that may be no, sorry, for 2000. No, yeah, you said for now, right? The next axis switch is symbolic of the recent planetary alignment. Now,
Yeah.
my point is two. One is we know that from studying the history that there's been a war or a competition for this realm, for the ownership of this realm between Saturn and Jupiter. We see it in the religious symbolism, we see it in the linguistic symbolism, we see it in symbolism in general. And you said planetary alignment. Now we know that the planets are, chained demonic beings that control this realm through layers, each kind of ruling a elliptic or a concentric sphere, multiple layers of spheres around us in this realm, in this inversion of another version that's more natural, which could be corresponding to the crystal spiral. So when these spirals meet and or when they separate, like in terms of the alignment, what is happening? Are there things also happening in the stars that are causing this separation? Or in other words, are we riding out those of us who are riding on the crystal spiral, are we riding out of the planetary sequence somehow? Does that make sense? Are we being supported by the stars, or are we being supported by planets that we cannot yet see?
Well, I think it's a mixture of that, and also what I think it is we are going into a different dimensional plane. Now, some call it 4D or 5D, and they class this realm as 3D. Um, but what I think is this connects to the Great Pyramid of Giza. Um, and I haven't got any slides of that up here today. But the Great Pyramid of Giza within um, Jason Bashir has, I think, very cleverly worked out that it's a calendar, but it was also a machine. And this machine ran for, he believes, 3 seconds or so and uploaded information within this realm. But part of the information within that realm that it uploaded was the Fibonacci sequence. And the Fibonacci sequence is a system that collapses upon itself and is an ending, it's a decay. Now, how clever would it be if the Fibonacci sequence was placed within the pyramid to upload into this sequence so that at this point it gave the souls who vibrated at a high enough frequency potentially to then have the opportunity to ride the wave of enlightenment and therefore get out of here. And those souls that have yet to learn, grow, and develop to the correct level would have to go back round again. It's kind of like a cheap process of this is a backdoor exit out of this realm.
Got it. Well said. Okay, let's go on.
Um, this one I'm not going to go on to too quickly about. It's the mathematical formula. Please screenshot it and you can read what it says.
Could you
Uh,
show it? It's not being showed right now. Can you click on it so we could see it for a minute?
is it not showing?
It's not showing. It's still the old one.
Oh, how do we do that then? Um,
Murky's playing his tricks.
Mercury certainly is.
Yes, tricks.
I wonder how we do um, your screen sharing. Oh, yes, I see. Um, no, it's not that. I wonder if I escape. No, what's for this?
You could stop share and then you could share again. You could try that.
Yeah, stop share. Mercury, I tell you, Mercury has really been retrograde, has been playing some real games recently.
Venus is not helping either. She's in the underworld. Mercury with Mercury.
Right, that's it. I'll have to do it that way. That's fine.
There we go.
So this is the second one, and this please, it's just a case of screenshot this if you want to. I'm not going to go into it too deeply because the next slide is better, but it shows the crystal spiral sequence in numerology and the fib of no chi cycle in numerology in numbers, and it's got a description. So, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Please do that because the next slide. Um, how do we get to the next slide? Let's just see what I can do here. Okay. There we go. Hopefully we can see that. Yes, we can.
Yeah, the daisy of death on the right and on the
Yep,
left, that's the Chris code, correct?
correct. So what we have is um, the Fibonacci sequence, which is actually the daisy of death. Um, and we have the um, Chris code, which looks different. And you can actually see, this is why I put the slide in, because you can actually see the difference between the two. And these actually make squares fundamentally. And this is more of a flow, more of a natural, almost toroidal system. So one does not look like a toroidal field, and one really does.
Yeah, the one on the right looks like cubes. Yeah, you could see it as the three-dimensional or four-dimensional cubes.
Correct. Which is Metatron's cube as well, potentially, that we went over very briefly. And
But that's
anything,
also in the films, right? There's also films which like to underscore the cube, right? Interstellar, I think, right? Uses
yes,
the cube, right? And that's interesting how it does, right? In relationship to time travel, the past and the future. So that's they're telling us their spiral, writing that spiral, what it is. I didn't like that movie at all. I couldn't stand the cliched, you know what I mean? Fake atmosphere of that film. Couldn't stand it.
but yeah, so it's a very good visual to see the difference. And unfortunately, the new age and many people with very good intentions that don't understand that there is such a thing as Chris code will create energy bracelets and medallions actually under the Fibonacci. And what they're actually doing is they're taking their own energy away from them and giving it to somewhere else. And this is part of the inversion of the realm we live in.
Yeah, no surprise there.
No, no, no. I wonder if it shares now. Can you see that? Has it changed?
It looks like a spiral image of people
That's the
or
one.
beings getting smaller and smaller, almost
Well,
like fading into a background.
yeah. So if this is actually the Fibonacci, and so we're born in the middle, and as we go, we grow and we grow, and then we get to a certain stage where we start to decay, which is what the Fibonacci does. And then the decay goes into the end where it actually collapses. And the Chris code does not do that.
What do you mean by it collapses? How does it collapse? Either numerically, mathematically, or
It has no how can I put it? It uses energy. It cannot create energy. So the Chris code can actually create energy. So when you break the Chris code down, it's a copy of itself within itself, within itself, within itself. So it's a self-replicating system. As the Fibonacci is a parasitic system where it takes energy from the surrounding area until the energy is used up and then it collapses upon itself, which is
you know
part.
the do you know the I don't know, this may relate. Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt.
No, no.
Is the Ouroboros like a similar symbol of Fibonacci in the sense that it's the serpent eating itself? So I think either Lotta or was talking about this with her recent interview with Sonia. I think she was talking about the Ouroboros and how it is a symbol, even the infinity sign, right? Which is very
Yes,
similar. These are
yes,
symbols which it's feeding off itself.
correct.
There's no other source of the energy.
There's
It's
no
just stuck.
sustenance.
It's
Yeah,
stuck in its own roll. It's like a roller coaster ride that you can't get off of.
correct.
It's just moving and it's spirals, but it's contained spirals. It's not as opposed to a toroidal field, which we'll get to, which is self-generating
Yes,
and develops from a centripetal and centrifugal pull that goes in both directions
and can also
and
a
is
toroidal.
emanating from a
Yeah,
source.
yeah, and a toroidal field can link into another toroidal field and create a bigger field.
I wonder if this is what the planets do with their transits or attempt to do, because we're talking about Chris code, not Fibonacci sequence, and the planets would be in Fibonacci sequence. And
Potentially so, particularly
and they're
Saturn, which is the seventh, isn't it? Again, Saturn is the seventh planet or the
hmm
seventh realm. And it's
hmm
interesting that the split is happening at the seventh point in Saturn or of Saturn, if you looked at
prior
it
to
that way.
prior to the transition of the invisible planetary initiations of Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, which symbolize other realms. Saturn is the limit, the defining structure of this realm. So if the sequences are going out of Saturn, or at least the Chris code is, then that makes sense. It's a gateway out of here, out of
Yes.
this particular inverted realm. Um, yeah, okay. Wow, okay.
Nicely put. Nicely put. I see. That's what I love about you, the way you can see it in a different way that I can, and verbalize that in an astrological or planetary way that makes total sense.
I do my best. I still struggle because with astrology, we're talking about the astronomical as well as the astrological, and to marry those two is itself the contrast of the Chris code and the Fibonacci, because astronomy is the description of the realm we're in and how we're utilizing it. And astrology is a recording, a measurement of time, where the planets are going to be from one day to the next, plus the symbolism, plus the actual song of this celestial sphere, the songs of it, because we're walking songs, the planets are songs, everything is a frequency, it's a song
Yeah.
that resonates, and objects are resonating or they're not. I mean, that goes into physics, right?
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. Because something like a lump of steel will resonate and vibrate very, very slowly. And so we get the hard feeling. And something that resonates very quickly, like water, has a soft feeling. And so you get the two differences. So the slower and the lower the vibrational frequency, the denser something is, and the higher the vibrational frequency, the more softer it is.
and what does that mean, that contrast of soft and hard in tone, in
I, I,
what
I,
does that correspond to?
I'm not sure. I'm not
Does that
sure.
correspond to our frequencies?
Well, I think it's more to do with light. And the next slide, I think, shows this quite nicely.
Because red is a heavy color, for example. So infrared being the bottom of our visible spectrum, right? And ultraviolet being the top would be the light or the soft. No, no. Is the soft the light? No.
Can you see this the emotional guidance scale?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so what we have fundamentally is, and this is kind of a stretch, but as we go down the spiral of the Fibonacci, we go down into the blue light, and as we raise our consciousness, we go to the yellow, we go up.
Interesting.
And so I can't tell you note wise and
Yeah.
musically wise the difference, but I can show it via light on this scale.
Well, this is even a variated representation of the visible spectrum. It's not from red to, it's not from infrared to ultraviolet. It's a different scale. Fascinating.
But this also, I believe, because we spoke about this last week briefly, and the coalition between the planets and how they affect us via the sun's light rays. And something that I knew I had it before. Have you got anything else to add to this, or are you happy with that?
No, no, I'm happy. We can go on to the next
Yeah, yeah.
slide.
Now, as we were talking, when we were children, we had a yellow sun. We now have a white sun, and you can see the scale. And once we get to the end of this light frequency, which I think we nearly are, we get the Phoenix reset and we go back to the yellow sun again. And it all
Do we
starts
go to
over
a blue
again.
sun? Do we
Uh,
go to a blue? And I think it's the sun simulator in front of the sun, right? Possibly it's a sun in front of a sun, and then there's another sun out in the real, right? In the real realm. We're in the false contained realm where there's some kind of perhaps, sun simulation of a sun. Is it going to turn all the way blue?
Well, we're at white at the moment, aren't we? I mean, it's very powerful,
Fascinating.
but when you actually look at the sun in the morning and the evening, we still have an orange sun. We have an orange sunset and we have an orange sunrise. And this is, Sonia believes from the Tree of Knowledge, and I actually concur with her on this. This is the suns from the realms either side of us influence, and then during the day we have the sun simulator to give us light where we wouldn't have it before.
Yeah, yeah, her and Lada were pretty much saying that, and that was said in the past.
But I also think that the light frequency from either a, I mean, I don't believe the sun that we've ever had in this realm is actually a real sun. I think it's a construct or it's a, how can I put it? I think it's a reflection of the energetic energy we have within this realm, and the light of the sun reflects the energy within the realm. And one of the ideas, which is a very, very interesting concept from Martin Ladicki from Flat Earth British, was that we actually live in a kind of fascia, a battery. And that's why when we get the reset with the Phoenix event, we get lots of red dust. And when you charge a battery will produce a red oxide off it. And the sun is just a reflector of the stage in which we're in as a time, almost as shows us the time of where we are within the scale of when we get the next reset and the big reset.
That last part again?
Well, we're potentially in 2040 going to get a very big reset, aren't we?
Hmm.
Which will then lead to, in 2178, the total reset into the beginning of the new realm, the new cycle. And so at some point, that new reset means a recharge of the battery. And so that's why we have red dust over Australia and such like, because the battery or the realm needs to be recharged because the fib of no chi has taken away the energy. And it's likely, and Martin suggested this, that they use the human souls that are left within this realm to power that charge up before coming back into it and starting the cycle all over again.
Yeah, that makes sense. You know, I was gonna maybe it's a good time to mention this. I was rereading the history in my I didn't bring it, oh, it's over there, but I was rereading the history of the Sola Busca Tarot deck, which has a very specific history to it, and they were discussing in it in the book that our souls live at least 10,000 years. And then so I can't remember, someone may have even calculated the usual amount of incarnations we have, simultaneous incarnations, right? Because we know that time is at least how it's conceived in Western culture is a fiction, right? It's
Yes,
something plastered on, it's a frame, because really when we go into other densities of awareness, there is no time constraints. We could talk to anyone from the past, we could talk to ourselves in the future, and we can go back and forth through doing healing work or just getting messages from the past and the future. So there's something about understanding how not only can we do that, but the editors can do that as well, to the point where they even can. I mean, that's why they have this kind of, I mean, even though, you know, the aphotic Gnostics would say we're trapped in this realm, and they are as well with us, there's some level of understanding that because we're in some kind of fabricated realm, that there can be manipulation, even inserts, like in this holographic everyday reality, which is why we have the Mandela effects and etc. And which is why also in having these inserts, why the level of non-temporal awareness is the conduit for getting out of here. Because if we're grounded in the natural world, then we look for the portals and vortexes and vanishing points in nature, not in the black mirrors, which we're all looking at right now, but rather outside in the tree mirrors, the tree portals, the tree gateways, right? As Sonia always comes back to,
Yes.
how the others, and I love it how she said that in every density of awareness, I'm using the term density, I prefer it over dimensions because dimensions is something more Fibonacci, it's more layered cubes in a sense. But if you think of densities, it's just this same field of awareness, it's just different layers of it, like an auric field. And so I love that because it's the idea that trees are the same in every density. So no matter where you go, as I look outside right now through my window, there are many trees and they're all there no matter where I go, even in my physical body here, where I may go and come back, those same trees are surrounding and all those densities,
Yeah.
all those worlds.
I actually see it as the base programming. So from the teachings you've given us on human design, we come in with a different human design system within us to promote a different kind of experience while we're here, a kind of a program within a program within a program. And I believe the trees and such like are part of the base programming and are always in every single density, realm, or however you wish to use your language as a base construct. And it doesn't matter if you're in the 3D or say 5D, the holography will always be fundamentally the same. A tree is a tree is a tree. Doesn't matter. It's that familiarity of the base program that we see across the board that allows for the nuances of the experience of our time here in this inverted realm.
Beautiful. I mean, that you just described the root, the real root, if there is one, when we're in an inverted realm. The root of a tree is the root to where the real is. And the branches also span out to reach for the real outside of this realm or REEL, this real. So well said there.
Really interesting. Right. So the next slide is now, I'm not saying, how can I put this? I have real problems currently with our chakra system and the Sophrogou frequency. This is just to show the light colors again, which related to the spiral going up and the spiral going down of the effect that light has upon us in the bodily form. And I don't want to get hung up particularly on this, but it's very interesting that we have hertzes or frequency, music hertz or associated to different colors. I
Right.
mean, I don't know how you feel about that, but that's my this is just purely to as a visual to show that um, different sound waves or vibrational frequency waves of the color spectrum have a different effect on the human brain and body. And I think that links into the planets at certain times when they're in retrograde or not, where their energy frequency changes, which is why it affects the body so much, because the hertz changes very subtly, and so we then feel it.
What is it that causes this change and shift that we feel?
Light, I believe it's a light frequency, it's a vibrational frequency of the light coming into us. Because light is a frequency and has a harmonics, it has a hertz. Just as the sun does affect us, so do the planets.
So, right. So we got on this a little last time. So,
Yeah, we did. But this is a more of a visualization for people as we spoke about it.
and I can go over the layer real quick because I have the colors in front of me. So these colors correspond to the seven color rays spoken about in Jyotish astrology. Some people call it Vedic, but that's an incorrect term. So in Jyotish astrology from India, they really focus on the color rays and those frequencies, which is our, visible spectrum, all the way from infrared up to, I mean, we would reverse this to ultraviolet, but just in the way it's written, it's correct. So red, of course, being the heaviest, symbolizing the south node, our past, the weight of the past. And then going through the other color rays, orange, of, well, I'm not even remembering it all right now. Green of Venus, for example, the blue of Saturn, it would be a dark blue, and then up to ultraviolet, which is more of a well, it's closer to Saturn. I'm not even remember what violet is, but this is the color spectrum that, yeah, as in medical astrology, it affects us. For example, if there's going to be an eclipse near your sun, like kind of what happened to all the Pisces in recent days with our recent eclipse that occurred on the 14th. If you wanted to have vitality during that time, then you can just put water in a red glass, for example, and it'll give you extra. Like my voice is really messed up today, so I can add some red color ray vitality. But all these color rays, yeah, they affect us all the time. Um, and so it even matters like using light bulbs, right? I'm sure we all know about this in certain countries and certain states. We can no longer really use incandescent light bulbs, Now we have to use these other types of light bulbs, which
LED, yeah.
yeah, LED, which are basically smart bulbs conveying information through the 5G frequencies, which is going to be, I imagine, a very low frequency,
Yes,
you know,
very
related
low,
or lower, probably heavy, dark, uh,
dense.
blackish, dense color.
Very interesting how they use that kind of system against us, isn't it? So we're talking about frequencies and music. Now, I came across this a while ago, and it shows the music that relates to the star sign. So Sagittarius, Scorpio, Libra, Virgo, and it shows the someone's actually written in their own hand here what has the biggest effect within that. Now, I know you said you had something similar, didn't you?
Yeah, I'm going to show mine now. Everyone look at that one closely. Maybe look at your sign, for example. So I'm gonna go back to yours, Gary, because I already compared some and it does seem different. Do you know the source of yours?
No, I don't. No.
Okay.
And again, I'm not saying this is correct.
Yeah, we
What
don't
I'm,
we don't know
what I'm
exactly.
saying is this shows, I think, that frequency has an effect on us.
Yeah, yeah, it's more to the point. Yeah,
Yeah.
we don't know the exact, but this is like, so there's two notes per sign. And this shows the kind of the 12 houses of the zodiac. This is a great picture because you can see the theory, the music kind of theory drawn out on the, yeah, that's amazing.
And
So
again,
I'll,
Sorry, that again goes back to kind of classical music and the fact that they went from 432 to 442 hertz to change the effect that the music has upon us and the body and the mind.
Got it. There's all kinds of great comments in the chat real quick. I'll go into that before I share the one I have. Let's see a couple of things. Um, One person said they created a Skylar coil and it's exactly like the crystal code. And that's FR33 man. And so that's pretty brilliant. They said it's exactly like the crystal code. So it's like the Chris code when they created a coil and it emanated like that.
Thank you very much for that comment. I haven't got comments. I'm not looking at them because I find it too distracting. I can't do two things at once. I'm a
No, I
man.
know. We discussed that. I'm just going to
But
give it a quick.
but please do, Maten, if you can keep an eye on the chat, that'd be awesome.
Robin noted that biofield tuning uses Fibonacci frequencies. Yeah, that's what I was like. Me and Gary were talking about in the beginning how we know that it uses Fibonacci, and it is powerful when it's used. I've had it done, but when I heard it was Fibonacci, I kind of stopped doing it because I was like, what's going on? What's really happening when I dig so deep into when my field is being, so deeply affected because it's very powerful. Um, there's some interpretation of the Phoenix event here with the dust burying things below it where the plasma charges on the surface. Petrification. Oh, petrification on the surface. And then a comment that a tree is a pillar, oak is seen as a door, and the tree also represents a toroidal field.
It
Yeah, it's a
does.
living thing. All living things are going to emit because they're really living as opposed to not.
It's
Um,
interesting. The toroidal field of a tree actually comes off the trunk. Fundamentally, it's mostly off the trunk. So it's the bit between the leaves and the root, and the pillar is the toroidal field, which is the toroidal field of knowledge. And the pillar, obviously, back in the olden days, when you went to a library, you didn't read books, you read the pillars because the pillars had the information on them. There were no books.
the pillar you said had the information, and there was no.
There were no books. All the information was carved onto the pillars. And so when you went into a library, there were pillars, and you would walk around and find the pillar you wanted, and you would read the information off the pillar. And actually, the Great Pyramid of Giza was called a pillar in the early days, was not called a pyramid. That's a modern interpretation. And the Great Pyramid of Giza had 144,000 limestone casing blocks, and each one had information on it. It was a history in itself on the
Pillars
outside.
going back to the pillars as a library, there's also the term pillars of the sky, which could relate to holding up the sky, right? Or climbing up to the sky. I think that's there's a lot of meanings for that because that's in Masonic symbology. And yeah, and that's fascinating because well that goes into the idea that trees are computers. You know what I mean? The real computers.
Yes, yeah, the real brains of the realm, the real, yeah. Because also there is a theory which I came up and I've seen it elsewhere as well, that the Great Pyramid of Giza is actually the Tower of Babel.
That's
Because
that's 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 too layered to go into. I mean, that's
yeah,
like
yeah,
what's
yeah,
the
yeah.
meaning of the term
That's
Babel?
quite that's quite a deep one. But if the Pyramid of Giza actually was a machine and uploaded something into the holography, then that would have been man trying to escape via the Tower of Babel. But it didn't happen instantaneously. It just uploaded data within the realm to allow that escape to happen, which is now coming up now soon in time wise.
Yeah, that's powerful. Okay, so I'm gonna share.
Do you want me to stop
Um,
sharing?
no, you don't have to. I think mine will automatically come in. Can you see it?
No.
Okay, maybe stop sharing.
Yes, now yours has.
Okay, so this is a Song Gaia sound medicine chart. So I had a reading years ago by a woman who had some software, and she was trained at a school. I'm sure she went to the school here in San Rafael in California. And there was a software program where you could record your voice, and then um, the software would determine which notes you have in your voice and which notes you do not have in your voice. And the ones that you were lacking uh, were notes that you wanted to hear more so that you can incorporate it because we're supposed to be able to express all the notes, not just the ones of our sun sign, although those might symbolize who we are. But I was interesting. I found that my rising sign was not represented strongly enough, and neither was my sixth house cusp. And I think I can't remember what else, two other two other notes that supposedly my voice was lacking. And so in this one, if you guys remember from the past, I think for Jamie I did his Scorpio, so it should be on the screen what notes I said there, and we could use that as an example to compare the difference. So I had said that his was, let's see, because I put it in response and now I don't see it. Okay, so I think it's right there. Yeah, C major and A minor was on your map for Scorpio. On this one, it says G and G. So just G. So interesting. I wonder why the difference or distinction. But this is a bit a modernized, version. Um, and some of these have no, they're all just one note. So the page that you represented had two notes per sign.
Yeah.
This one has one. So they're probably using a different scale, a different kind of musical notation.
Something
Uh,
that we came across um, because my partner did something like this. And when we did some digging on this, because you could use your voice, they would take a photograph of your aura and send you music to put into your ears to listen to then help boost up this kind of stuff. When we looked into it fully, the system had been developed by MIT, which is a eyebrow raise, but within the system, the Fibonacci sequence was there in its full capacity.
it was there in its full capacity in
Yeah,
relationship to the notes.
yes, it had the Fibonacci sequence within the notes, how it played out. It was part of the programming from MIT.
So there's been talk about, I'm sure you heard this, there's been talk about that in different from different camps. I think it was Oracle Girl who said this, that there would be new notes that would come into existence during this time. And so I'm wondering if that would be notes in relationship to the crystal code of awareness, and there being a new layer of musical expression, a new scale. And this is fascinating, man, because I wanted to bring this up. I won't show it, but I'll just mention this and then we can go on to the next. So I have a PDF. Let me put it on my other screen so I can read it to you guys. This is from a YouTube and a website called Myth Decoded. And so this was more about um, the lineages and the bloodlines and all that stuff. But there was this interesting reference to, and I guess I must have kept on reading the page because now I lost the page. Okay. So there was this reference to music of ancient times So, for example, there was a mention of, okay, give me a second. Oh, I don't want to do it from memory. It was mentioning that in Mesopotamia and in Sumeria, that there was certain scales, certain ancient scales that were of use. Okay. And it was mentioning, um, I guess what they call, the tritone, what the church would call the devil's tritone. This is a particular interval, that you hear for example, Holst, the famous composer that did the planets, right? And so you hear this especially in Mars, which is like the core of a lot of modern metal, right? I mean that piece, that composition piece is reflected in Diamond's Head song "Am I Evil," a metal band from the early 80s. And it's fascinating because that particular tone, and you hear this in metal music, this atavistic invocation of the ancient past, right? In some of the metal bands, you have this huge paganist revival, but it's more of like an ancient revival for like past sounds. There's some bands that even do Egyptian chords and scales, and this kind of pulls you, into the past and awakens some of the DNA in strange ways, right? So what it was saying here, if I can find it, is that there are some modern re-representations of these particular chords and scales. And it was listing some of the composers of the last 200 years. And it's just so annoying, man. I had it right on my screen and now it's gone. And but it mentioned Wagner, in the Ring series, the 16-hour, Ring cycle, as well as his other pieces. And she noted, and Myth Decoded, she noted that these songs, these pieces, these composition pieces are utilizing like this ancient music from the past, right? These ancient scales and chords. Now, what I'm curious about is if they correspond to Fibonacci, you know what I mean? Or the Krystal code. Because we know what we're experiencing in modern day to some effect is like this saturation of Fibonacci sequenced, over digitized expression of music, and what we're inundated with is music that is highly repetitive and highly based on, like especially like rock, like based on a very heavy pulsating first, second chakra kind of trapped energy, right? Trapping us in like the sexual realm of awareness. And so again, not to say that metal doesn't play to those frequencies, but when I discuss metal, I'm more talking about like um dark wave and the influences of certain types of metal music that's very ethereal and intricate and goes deep into these kind of atavistic melodies that are just very inward, very background based, instead of someone screaming at you, you have someone doing like a rasp, like a throat expression of their deep emotional inner content. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it's a different expression of pain, and what it is to be human, because pain and this kind of, I don't know that everyone agrees with me, but in some sense, when you're stuck in these lower frequencies, um, the heights of joy, of ecstasy, mirror the depths of pain. So in other words, if you feel great joy, then you're going to feel the great absence of that, the great emotional depths in correspondence. We feel both. And and that's almost like a little wrench in, the whole idea that, it's better to hear the happy music, as opposed to, negative, ugly, like depressive music. You know what I mean? But and yet they're all expressions of who we are. So we just don't want to live, you know what I mean? Live too low, or too high maybe, but find the correct balance.
Well, isn't
Uh,
it that love and hate, both emotions, are actually very close to each other?
Well, the two sides of the same coin, right?
There we
I
go.
mean, that's why the true key to this realm is authenticity, not love, but authenticity. Just being what you are, beingness.
That middle
All right, yeah,
ground we spoke about last time. Yeah.
yeah. Go ahead and you can share the next. I think I have to stop, right? You just go ahead and share and it'll cover this.
Let's see if I can. Uh, right. So the next slide is DNA. And can you see that?
I'm trying to find my other that one slide I wanted to share before now. Oh, it's so annoying. Now I can see yours. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, I can see
So,
it.
so the next slide is based fundamentally DNA, and DNA is in a waveform. And when you cut through this waveform, you fundamentally get what you see on church windows, the round church windows, which is a frequency band which churches and cathedrals would have pumped out via the organs and the bells to maintain the high frequency of the people during Tartarian times. But it's still a waveform, it's a frequency, it's a sound.
Everyone should put on Passaglia by Bach and hear that organ sound, and in the grand cathedrals, right? Because that sound is like what you're showing here.
Yeah.
That piece by Bach is so incredible. It's like a 14-minute piece. It's called Passag. I think it's C minor, Passaglia in C minor, something like that, and it's so elevating, you know.
But I just wanted to show the DNA side to show the connection between us and the realm and that we are all of one. There is no disconnection from this realm. We are this realm and the realm is us,
Now you're saying that about which particular realm?
the one we currently are in.
And
But
so
all
that realm is us as well. This
yes,
realm is us as well. This kind of Fibonacci realm.
yeah, because it has to be a reflection of us because we're in it.
So
And how,
where are we at in it, and where are we at in it?
well, it depends on your state of mind and your frequency level, doesn't it? Upon that, because when we get ill, we get disease. And so the dis-ease is the change of the frequency within the body, and so the change of the DNA, and then you get ill.
Is that in when you say it's us, are you saying because we could also imagine the chakra system, right, as a foreign installation, as like CD players, right? Sound
Yes.
sound frequencies, like seven major sound frequencies. So when we get sick, are we operating mostly from those glands, or are those glands just getting muddled and unkept, and thus the frequency is distorting, like on a record, right? It's like a record spinning, right?
Yeah,
It
it's a
starts to get
distortion.
warped,
Yeah.
right? Then there's distortions in it and in the frequency.
I think for us to be in this realm, when you look at a rainbow, as in, as within, as without, so within, so without, our chakra system is the same color as a rainbow. And there's seven colors and the seven thing. We've seen how the
Seven planetary
frequency. Yeah, yeah.
rays. Yeah.
So if we have a, how would you stop a being from escaping if you didn't put chains on it out of a prison? You've got a work gang in America. They're digging the side of the road, and those guys are either driven into the middle of nowhere so they can't escape, or they have a chain around their ankle while they dig the holes. Is the chakra system the chain around our ankles holding us in this current vibrational frequency of a realm, not allowing us to escape it? I'm just putting the question out there.
No, that makes sense. And there's some talk, especially in the depth book. Nancy, my friend Nancy put me onto this. In the depth book, it talks about how the chakra as a foreign installation system is regulated by the planetary cycles, especially the moon, right? The moon would be the primary, and in human design, the moon is the primary programming agent of the Maya, right? Of the illusion or the delusion of this um, lower frequency realm. That's also us, but that's lower as we've kind of determined and spoken of, and corresponds to the Fibonacci sequence. So, and that, that goes back, I probably mentioned this last time too, is it goes back to the idea, especially of Gurdjieff, that um, we are in essence being fed or being used as batteries by the moon, which redirects the energy to um, substantiate this realm and continue its existence. So we feed the moon by, I don't know if to say celebration is the correct term, but if we're celebrating or we're exerting energy in certain ways on a full moon or on an eclipse, it's definitely feeding this particular realm. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, it
So
does.
it's questionable whether, there's a lot of people that like to do, oh, let's do a full moon and new moon gatherings. And so relative to what you're doing, I question, that intention, why? For what?
Well, well, it's interesting that the moon in the tarot cards is illusion and delusion. It's hidden secrets. It's opaque. It's not necessarily a good card. The moon is not necessarily a good card. And actually in the tarot, it's got twin pillows down the side and two dogs barking. So you have a duality going on within the moon hiding secrets.
Yeah, I remember. And then the other layer to that is in metaphysics, especially in the work of Dion Fortune. There's a highlight and underscoring of the moonlight as giving off its own light, is not really being a reflection of sunlight, but rather generating its own light. And
Yes,
then we know from simple physics that, or simple experience, that it's colder when you're in the moonlight. And also, it points to some kind of level, perhaps a deceptive level of introspection, because what you see in moonlight is not necessarily something outside of you, but something being projected from within you. Whereas in sunlight, we see what is visible according to the visible spectrum. And the sun, reciprocally actually blinds us from some external things. So what we see at night and what we see during the day are two levels of reality. And
duality again.
yeah, and then another duality would be the relationship, as we discussed, between the planets and the stars. The stars as friends of humanity and the planets as enemies of humanity, and how they affect us in their transits and their movements. Yeah, this is all interrelating.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because obviously, um, the moon is a luminary, and when it's at full moon, it produces lunacy.
Yeah, we know. For those, it produces lunacy for those that do not know how to protect their energy field, because the lunacy is being extracted out of them. So their emotional body is being opened up to fuel the moon, to give energy to it, to feed it. This is what Gurdjieff spoke of, right? To actually feed energy to it. And I wonder if the narration, right, if the musical soundtrack for this realm is about programming that. You know what I mean? Like it's very staccato music, very um emotion oriented, to the extreme instead of kind of moving between in and outer worlds. It's more just at least popular music, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I found the page on the music I wanted to read. So may I read
Of
this real
course,
quick?
of course.
Yeah.
And then we'll go on to the next slide.
Yeah. So this is from Tess Clark. This is her Mythos Decoded. This is on her website. My no, it's just mythosdecoded.wix site. And so she has this quote here that she's talking about musical sequences. And I almost have to go to the page before because she's talking about, she was discussing how certain types of architecture have to do with certain types of music and making sounds in order to move big blocks, you know?
Coral
You've heard of
Castle.
this before. We talk about this in relationship to Egypt, right? Like levitation ceremonies that utilize sounds in order to move heavy objects. So she was talking about those musical sequences, and then she goes into, I guess she's talking about a particular ceremony or how it was done. And then she mentioned six trumpets positioned at intervals between the drummers. On command, the trumpets and drums would begin with the monks at the rear providing a baffle whilst chanting. The time span before levitation of the stone occurs is 4 minutes, and in this manner, stones have been lifted some 400 meters. So there's sequences of music that have been able to affect matter and to move objects. And she goes on to note that um, one of the musical sequences is the most famous of all. It's the tritone. And as I had mentioned, dubbed by the church as the devil's interval. This is now it says here, this is a direct extraction from the discovered harmonic scale of ancient Mesopotamian deities, which include the Enki scale, the Enlil scale, the Anu scale, the Marduk scale, the Kinju scale, basically the Sumerian pantheon, right? Inanna scale and others. No composer has done so much to preserve the legacy of this type of, I guess originally in the article, I'm kind of extracting from the article, but it's talking about Lord of the Rings and how Lord of the Rings was based on real history, right? Real beings of the past, actually based on around 4000 BC. So Sumerian based, even, in ancient Mesopotamia. So um, it just notes that this music still exists today to some effect with the four-part Nibelungen's ring cycle, Wagner, the Rheingold, the Valkyrie, the Siegfried, Twilight of the Gods, and it's notes it as coming from Burgundian folklore. I don't know, I've never heard what that is. But derived also from Norse mythology and the Volsunga saga. And so it's just a fascinating note because we have Wagner's music, you know what I mean? And you can listen to it without the singing, so you can actually hear the intervals being used. And so I've been doing this for the last couple of weeks, and it is very powerful, elevated music, um, and very much related to a lot of modern metal or some modern metal. But yeah, I'll stop there and we'll go to the next slide.
Fascinating.
Are we going really slow, Gary? Am I slowing you down?
No,
What's
no,
going on?
not at all. No, I think it's wonderful because I think people want to hear both sides, and it's really fascinating because that puts us back to how they built the pyramids and that guy who built Coral Castle. It all reflects back.
Yeah,
It's
Coral
also
Castle.
part of us, you know.
Right.
So this has true relevance within this realm, you know.
Okay, cool.
So toroidal fields. We have something called the galactic heart, our heart, and the Earth heart. Now, I'm not sure about the Earth heart shown here, but I just want to show that I think we're all connected via toroidal fields. The toroidal field, whether it be from the tree, from ourselves, or from what they call Mother Gaia, um, measured via the Schumann resonance, is we are all part of the toroidal field that connects to everything within this realm. This realm is a toroidal field fundamentally, and our hearts produce. You can see that the toroidal field from our heart is exactly the same as the galactic heart, which is exactly the same as the Earth toroidal field energy. There's no difference. You happy with that?
That's great.
Yep, yep. Now, I've put this toroidal field on its side to show this line here is the plane in which the planets move, and we sit here within the toroidal field of the positive and the negatively charged. Does that make sense? So when we put a toroidal field on its side, obviously when it's up, at 90 degrees when it's going up and down, you can't really see it. But when you actually put a toroidal field on its side, we have this plane of inertia, and we are told very clearly that all the planets are on a single plane. And I shall show you that in the next slide.
So what does that mean?
But what does this mean?
Does that mean that the planets are like mini toroidal fields, or are they part of the greater whole?
I think they're mini toroidal fields. Now, some say there's a cosmic donut, and within the cosmic donut, through this, we have the flat plane of inertia of our current solar system. But it's very interesting that this says that we have a 26,000 year cycle. And if we follow Chief Ironbush's work and Jason of Archaic's work, Chief Ironbush has worked out, and I concur with Jason's math, that we have a 25,944 year cycle, which is the
Okay.
circle, which is the circle. So if you in religion were to take um, in Christianity, we often have a, a circle, and the circle split between into four quarters. Now, I think, and Sonia said this as well, that we're in the last quarter of this 26 or 25,944 year cycle. And the reason why I'm saying it's a 25,944 year cycle is because we have, or Jason has worked out that we have um, divisible by 138 years, not every 138 years, but we have major resets in 138 year periodicity cycles. And 25,944 years is actually 188 138 year cycles. And when you look at Jason's Chronicon in 4309 BC, there was a major reset. And if you follow it all the way through and take it that we're in the quarter, it's in quarters, there's 47 138 year periods. And that takes us precisely to 2178 AD, when we end the 25,944 year cycle and we go back again to the beginning. Does that make sense?
It does. two questions. One is, I think everyone will need to see it visually, but basically just imagine a circle with the cross of matter and the time sequence that Gary talked about. It works out splitting by way of four sections up to
If
the 2107, which was Jason's chronology. And
so, there we have part of the math.
now the way you're putting it now, has anyone put it this way besides you?
Um,
Into
Chief
a
Iron,
circle?
yeah, Chief Ironbush showed it as a circle, but I wanted to see how Jason's maths worked with Chief Ironbush's math because obviously Jason's come up with a very good, very detailed chronology, and Chief Ironbush has used um, his understanding of the planets and where certain stars or planets will be at certain times to work this out. And I wanted to see if Chief Ironbush's research, independent of Jason's research, worked, and it does. So this is an amalgamation of Chief Ironbush's like the round circle, the way he described it, and the timing. And I've then taken Jason's Chronicon and put the timings to it of the exact years when this stuff happened or will happen potentially.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I have nothing to add to that. Human design does not add specific, it does actually it does add very specific years for the right and left angle cross destinies of humanity. And the one that's really significant now is the one in 2027, in January, February. And this is the one we discussed on my channel, the one of the transition. We discussed it in our Discord, my
Yeah, we
Discord.
do.
Um, and that's the channel of the sleeping phoenix coming in 2027 and the cross of planning ending, which means, human communities, that's not something that's going to be supported in the background frequency for humanity. So we're going to go to a more independent individual, not so much tribal structure as we've had, but something more independent. We don't even know exactly how that looks like, nor do we know how long the process will take. And we know that human design also says that there's a new type of human coming out during that time. And this will be something that is long and drawn out. It's not going to just happen like that. There'll be, and that relates to the spiral shift because it's like we've always been this type of human, and now there's like another type that's going to spiral out of us because it's going to be given birth to by humans. But the rave seem, there's a lot of argument in the communities. Some people think the rave are the new transhumanist version of humans, you know, and other people say, oh, they're a more advanced version of us. But they sound like a degradation when you think about it, or when they talk about the details of how they operate, because they're not going to be emotionally expressive. They're going to be flat in their facial expressions. So it's fascinating, but it's hard to put the 2 cents together because there's just a lot of talk in human design of like further out than the 2107 is this idea that there's going to be an additional new being, and that'll be the Erons. But those beings will be more like objects than anything else. So it sounds more like a devolution. It sounds more like that the human destiny is kind of resembling the science fiction, right? That we are devolving into the Borg, or at least one of the spirals is. So I wonder if the
That's the
Fibonacci,
Fibonacci.
yeah, I wonder if the Fibonacci will devolve into like some kind of, roaming cubes, right? Roaming a Borg in space, in our spaces. It's so strange, man. Or and yet that also begs the question, was Ra of human design, was he describing this kind of Metatronic cubic realm? Was the demiurge speaking to him and describing how our bodies work in this realm? After all, human design corresponds with the chakra system. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And
it does.
and
Yeah.
if the chakra system is a foreign implementation, then that's a different destiny. It's a veering off. So, yeah, man, it's all very fascinating.
So
Let's go to the next. I'm gonna peek at the chat and see if they're saying some cool stuff. Let's see.
hopefully we haven't lost too many people in the kind of tangents and such like we go to where because everything is like a spider's web and trying to put the spider's web together to make sense is quite a difficult thing.
Yeah, some comments in the chat. Let's see. Someone is saying that the moon is more of a signal of where the cycle is. I don't understand that, but it's interesting. I'll keep that in mind. And then someone echoed the comment that, yeah, Orca Girl spoke about the chakra system is obsolete and not part of us any longer. Uh, I think even like, yeah, and I think Sonia on Lada's channel, Sovereign Key, in their last talk even spoke about how she doesn't even see it on people hardly anymore. Like
Yeah,
it's just coming off of them.
yeah,
Fascinating.
yeah. I think the Chris code is breaking the shackles of the chakra system and changing us to they call it crystalline, don't they? We're going back to a crystalline version of ourselves, which could actually make sense when you start looking at the Mandela effects and that the heart's moved potentially from our childhood and the kidneys have moved up and the body seems to be changing from our memory of what it was like when we were younger.
I still think about my heart as being right here on the left side. Do you think where do you think your heart is?
Well, I was told it was there, but I'm now told it's in the middle.
So I haven't been updated. I'm out of the loop. I still go to my left side for the heart. I don't go to the middle. I'd never heard that until, recent years when we were going over the different Mandela effects.
Yeah.
It's
But
it's
again,
very
the
interesting.
Mandela effect, I think, is also proof of the dimensional frequency that we change in. I mean, if you take a piece of flat paper and layer hundreds and hundreds on top of each other, and then create a toroidal field or a waveform going through this, what you're actually doing is going up and down, up and down, up and down through multi-dimensional layers all the time. But as the trend goes as such, you're slowly rising up and up and up. And at some point, that will change to the fact that your memory no longer represents the reality you had years ago because you've actually gone into a different dimensional density via the waveform as you go up and up and up.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's what we're seeing in a lot of the imagery, and especially the one you showed on the toroidal field.
Yeah.
There's like circles around a stream of energy almost being created, almost as if there's a kind of physics to this,
Yes, there
you
is.
know?
There is.
The idea in art, I like the idea in art of the vanishing point, right? Which is like the center. It's kind of the idea of a center of a toroidal field because it's pulling out and it's pulling into itself. So it is a toroidal field actually from a certain vantage point. And right now, today is March 22nd. So is it the 22nd or 21st? Man, I
I
get
don't know. I got.
Let's check. Let me check real quick. We need some grounding here. It's the 21st. We're recording
21st,
on
yeah.
Friday the 21st. So tomorrow, the sun will be at 2 degrees Aries conjunct Venus, the Venus star point at 2 degrees Aries. And this is fascinating because I'll just enter here from those who watch my channel. It's fascinating because I'm calling it the Aries vanishing point. Ray Merriman calls it the Aries vortex. No one else is calling attention to it. But it's the beginning degrees of the zodiac. So it's a new beginning, right? Which means a new ending, right? We just came out all these planets in Pisces. I mean, it's kind of some planets are still lingering there. And we have the Venus star point, we have vernal equinox, which is at 0 Aries. We have Neptune arriving at the end of the month, Saturn in May, and we have basically this point where all these new things are entering in, but because Neptune is um, framing it like with rose-colored glasses or kind of mystical, you know, hazy, unclear, um, just a lack of really knowing what it is we're seeing or not seeing, what is real or not real, what is emerging or what is disappearing. So it's a time of great confusion. And the North Node is there too in Pisces, almost at the Aries point. So right now things are vanishing before our eyes and new things are appearing. So we're living in this like right now in this really malleable period. And I wonder if it's one of those moments where if we want to slide off the spiral in this direction as opposed to this direction, we can, it being uh not just vernal I mean, we know the calendars aren't completely accurate, but what's kind of accurate is what we put our attention on energetically to some degree. So it's very powerful. This you're showing here, are you this is not necessarily a snow globe, but it's the toroidal field. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think that our frames of reference were different back then to they are now. And when we look at this, now we go, oh, it's a snow globe, it's a flat earth, it's blah, blah, blah. But it's not. I think every single ancient culture was showing the toroidal field that covers the realm, the flat inertial plane within the toroidal film, a field. And I think this is all that we're seeing.
Yeah,
And in
I agree,
Islam, we
man.
have the Earth, and then we have the planetary alignments going up to the seventh one, which is Saturn in layers.
Yeah, that's the one. That's the one that shows what I was talking about, right?
Yeah.
How this realm is contained by all the different orbits of the seven major planets. Now, the outer planets, the invisible planets to the naked eye, Uranus, Pluto, and Neptune, and whatever other black planets rage, beyond that. Um, those are chthonic. Those are representative of, at least Pluto is, of Yog-Sothoth from the H.P. Lovecraft mythos, but or history rather. These are other types of worlds,
Yes.
worlds
It,
outside.
these are external forces pulling on us as well.
Mhm.
But I wanted to show this to kind of change the mindset on what we're observing here is actually toroidal fields. They just didn't have the word toroidal field. They didn't have that kind of language in that time. But what they have drawn is toroidal fields because they're all balls, they're all circles, you know, above and below. They're just round circles, which is a toroidal field. And here we have a toroidal field with the ether or the earth. I mean, it doesn't really matter, but it just shows the cyclic event of the toroidal field, and it's circles in this particular um, depiction, which is no different to the circle on this depiction. Both are toroidal fields.
Yeah, that's what it is, man. That's what it is. It's not easy to explain that these days, because it's just, our language is so co-opted and controlled that we can't easily interject into an argument. Hey, I don't buy the globe and I don't purchase the flat, but rather it's a toroidal field of energy, that is emanating a field that looks like a globe, but we experience a flat plane. And perhaps we even experience the flat plane described in a lot of the flat earth work, which is that there's continents outside of continents, outside of continents, outside of, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
we're definitely, as Lada and Sonia were describing, we're in a water world, but we're floating like on all these, continents,
but if you look at this diagram here, say we're in the middle.
Okay.
Each one of these is a toroidal field. Each one of these balls is a toroidal field. And each one of these toroidal fields could be called Mars, Saturn, or whatever. But they're external to our toroidal field, but we can't get to, but they're within the cosmic toroidal field. And we could perceive them as realms or earths or other continents beyond our own perception of, because it's all part of the same toroidal field.
Yeah, worlds within worlds, wheels within wheels. And then we also have the same above us. Go back to that though. There's something I want to point out here. So it's the same above us in the sense that the stars or the 88 constellations that we occur are perhaps toroidal fields and toroidal fields as well. But on some level, because we have, for example, the sun behind the sun, or we're in a certain sphere, and the planetary essences or higher selves of these planets are really outside of it. Kind of like the idea that our higher selves are kind of like in the real. So in some geometric way described as outside of us, but really they're here. So the
Yes,
same as the toroidal field where the essence is both at the center, but also in the outskirts, as if we are here, but we're also here.
yes,
That makes
totally.
sense?
Yes, because
That's such a
because it
trick.
because it's a
Or
consciousness
echoes.
stream. A toroidal field is a consciousness stream. It's a data stream, just like in the Matrix. And that's what a neutrino is. When we look at neutrinos, somebody can be asleep on one side of the realm, and somebody can be awake, and that awake person will have an effect on the person asleep on the completely opposite sides of the realm via the neutrino stream of consciousness. But all it is two toroidal fields, or the connection of the toroidal fields interacting with each other, creating the instantaneous, because time is an illusion. Time doesn't work the way we think it does. So when you said what you said, I agree entirely. Our higher self is us at the same point in time, just at a different vibrational density or frequency that communicates to us via the way they do. But everything is actually exactly in the same place, all at the same time, happening at the same time within the toroidal field of consciousness of information.
This gets even more profound because this effectuates space. Because what we're talking about is not just time, but space. But then, so the question becomes, is there a difference between time and space?
I don't think so. I
There
think
is
it's
no
all one
difference.
thing.
There is no difference between
No,
time and space.
it's all one thing,
That's right.
because it's part of the toroidal field of connection. You know, I have a toroidal field coming out of me. I'm sat in a room, and below me on the ground is another toroidal field. And my toroidal field is part of the toroidal field of the ground below me. And so I'm connected to that. And so I am both things at the same time. But I'm also neither, because a toroidal field of consciousness, when there's no time, means that you're in all the places all at the same time, and yet you're in none of the places at the same time, which is when we go to the double slit helix experiment of the proton or neutrino or whatever, where it is every single state but no state when not observed. And it's only when you observe it and you put a conscious thought into something that it then changes what it is into what you perceive it to be, to give you the sense of reality.
Um, every time someone goes to those scientific frames, I always want to mention The Prince of Darkness by John Carpenter. It's a horror film that came out in the 80s, but it's so brilliant because I see these more as metaphors than anything else for what you're describing more precisely, because that talks about also matter and antimatter, right? And kind of the visible war of the frequencies in a way. But it's such a deep film because in the film is many of these concepts, including at the end when one of the characters pushes out some kind of demonic being from entering this realm. She pushes it back in its realm and goes with it. And so this is at the climax of the film. So she kind of saves humanity, right? Prevents this being from entering this realm, pushes it out, goes out with it. And then the last scene of the film, we were hearing during the whole film these dispatches from the future. And it was these frequencies using our brains as receivers. And it was sending us messages through our dream because they didn't have enough bandwidth to send it to our minds consciously. And so we're receiving it in the dream, and they were showing these dream images that everybody was imbued with in their sleep and wondering about when they woke up. And in the scene, she's in it as if she was from the future, and see she somehow came back or was in both places at once. I mean, this is like something about John Carpenter's work in the 80s, like his films are just describing a lot of this like exactly. And there's a lot of other details too that relate to what you're saying, but I'll leave it at that.
Um,
Oh,
I, I,
go
I
ahead.
was listening to a very recent thing about Bill Murray and Groundhog Day, and Groundhog Day is actually about time and space, and the manipulation of that, and us not having the perception of time in any reality at all. And actually it's a complete concept, and the only time that we think we have time is when we've got a watch or we're being told it. But if you don't have a watch, then there is no time, there just is.
That's great. I'm gonna have to rewatch that. That's brilliant. I wanted to go back to that page because I keep trying to make a reference to something and then I just go somewhere else.
This
But
one,
why why is the seven sisters or the seven stars of Pleiades noted here?
I think the Seven Sisters of the Pleiades has got more to do with this realm than we currently understand. And I've also asked my pendulum if it's the source of source, as in the Wi-Fi connection into this realm, and I get it is.
Okay. Um,
But it's not the only one. There are others, obviously, but the Seven Sister Pleiades seem to have a very big connection too. And also, Jason has said that back in the day, while we were under the vapor canopy before the flood of Noah, um, that the Seven Sister Pleiades and Orion's belt, and I think something else, it could have been Draconis, were the three major worshipped systems and followed systems.
we know all the energy is definitely on the Pleiades as well as the Orion star system. I have a reference. So in human design, a lot of weight is on what happened to the Orion star system and what happened to Sirius. And I'm just looking for a message from Nancy that she sent as a reminder of what occurred with the star of Sirius being destroyed by some kind of outer external um, star, kind of leeching, sucking from it, vampiring it, and that happening to our realm and thus influencing us and the direction of our devolution. as opposed to our evolution, to
I,
use
I wonder,
scientific
I
terms.
wonder if the destruction of Sirius would have been the lockdown into this realm that we currently have.
I think I think that would present perhaps a culmination of sorts amongst others, because this has been going on for some time, is my understanding. And we know we have layers of this. So I know that the Pleiades has a whole level of interpretation and awareness into this, and I'm not remembering the reference. It wasn't in human design, it was in something else. But in human design, there's also reference to the moons of Jupiter.
Yes.
And in human design, like Jupiter is given a little more precedence. Well, I mean, so it is in the mythology, because there is the talk of Saturn and Jupiter going to war and whose
Yeah.
realm this really is. And you and I were talking, and I don't know if this is in order of your PowerPoint, but we were talking about Zeus, as Jupiter, and the war with Saturn. But maybe we'll get to that. Let's
Yeah.
go on, because let me ask, how many slides do you have in your presentation, just to get a sense of where you're at?
26, but we don't have to go for, and some of them are quite quick. So, they're just so
Okay.
this is something I came across a while ago, and this is an interpretation of music and medicine. So, music and medicine are virtually identical, bar two frequencies almost in the way they're depicted. And I thought, that's interesting. I then came across this, and these Algol is a star, isn't it? Sirius is a star, but the depiction of these is in a very similar way to this. And my conclusion was, I think it's related, and I think this is part of the toroidal field or the vibrational frequency within us, and this is part of the makeup of our realm because it connects to music and medicine, musical medicine, and the stars.
It's also very similar to the Neptune sigil, because Neptune has the half crescent moon and the line through it as well, kind of like the Poseidon, the god Poseidon's
Yeah,
right trident. So that's fascinating. Yeah, it's so interesting. There's some of the early sigils of Pluto before they decided on one are very similar to some of these, with the little circles. A lot of these have the small circles,
yeah,
which is not in any of the glyphs of the planets. In this, for everybody, these are what Gary is showing here is most of the fixed stars.
yeah. But I came across this when I was
The
actually
most
looking.
important fixed stars, rather.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
came across what? Sorry.
I came across this, and the music one happened to have been, I don't know, I had the music one, I'd seen that, and then I started researching Capricorn because the Crab Nebula for the connection with the Black Cube and the connection with Janus and such like. And when I came across this, it was so similar. I mean, when you look at this one, you've got two arms, U's, and here you've got two arms, and it seems similar. And that similarity of the trident almost, and of the trident of sound waves again, I just couldn't ignore it.
I wonder if well, I wonder if some of the notes are, in larger scales, right? We were just referring to the Western scale, right? Which is doesn't take account of all the additional tones. Other cultures have additional tones, and probably even the scales of Mesopotamian were at a longer scale, perhaps, because they're taking note of additional tones. I forgot what that's called, those type of scales, but I wonder if there's even more associations with the fixed stars, and what tones they have. I think it's microtones,
Yeah, yeah.
something like that.
Because I think if you layered these over each other, this would create the illusion of the reality of a real realm, the matrix in actual fact.
Interesting. Very interesting. We know from somatics that this this realm must be being foisted upon us as an illusion created by the music of it, you know? And we know that there's been a war on the native peoples of this planet from the beginning. And the native people always used the drum sound to connect with the earth, which is the real. And then our modern Western culture is not about the earth at all. It's about cutting off the vanishing points of the earth from the human and occupying the air, just like the Prince of Air, who we know would be, a satanic force.
Yeah,
And so lifting us off the ground into air, into an illusionary realm where there's no root, there's no ground.
it
So
takes
yeah,
us
yeah.
away from what we really are, doesn't it? It
Hmm.
moves us away from what we are to what they want us to be, which is part
Yeah,
of the illusion, perhaps.
yeah. Right. What you got on the next one? I can't see
Right.
it.
The next
It's too
one
small.
is Satan or Saturn and how it all works. It's basically the cube and how the cube works in all of the major religions across the world. And when you open up a cube, you can create a cross, which has Christian. You can create a star,
A
which is,
tetrahedron star. Yeah,
yeah,
particular type of star.
yeah. But that star is quite interesting because if we go down, where did I find it? That's the Mercedes-Benz
Oh, I didn't catch
logo.
that one. Mercedes-Benz. What a trip.
I just thought I'd put that one in because it's the six of the six of the six, which is the 666, which is the carbon that
Based
makes us up. But it's not the
being.
beast, it's us.
Are we crystal based though? Are we becoming crystal based and no longer carbon based?
Apparently so, I don't know. This is what Sunya of Tree of Knowledge suggests, and others do, which is part of the Chris code, crystalline Chris code sequence. So if you're enlightened and you've gone through the journeys that you needed to go to potentially, and you've learned what you needed to learn, then you'll be on the Chris code, and we will be physically changing. But those who, how can I put this? Those in code who took the three dart finish, and the three dart finish was part of a worldwide disease that happened in 2020, and the three dart finish was the so-called cure for the so-called um, um, issue in 2020. Potentially, what was put into their bodies via the three dart finish would be the transhumanism of the cube to lower the vibrational frequency to lock them into the Fibonacci sequence. I'm not saying they are locked into it, but it would be a very good way to make their bodies denser and to slow down the crystal transition in from one to another. Do you understand
Yeah.
the terminology I'm using? I'm aware I'm on your channel and I don't want to be saying um, things that would cause issues?
Um, no, you said it very, very protected. So I'll see if I can respond to it without saying too much either. So in astrology, or I'll just go in this segue. So in astrology, while we describe Saturn as our apparent reality, we don't describe it as a real reality. What we describe as real is that which is behind. We describe the Plato of matter as Neptune, which is the imaginative fluid that co-creatively creates this in other realms. So Saturn is always represents the definable realm, but it's not necessarily a real realm. So it makes sense that this attempt to box us in is an attempt to seal us away, an illusory attempt or delusory attempt to seal us away from other frequencies that abound and to put us in smaller and smaller boxes until we're completely contained and disconnected from our sources, which remain outside. Because think about it, a box, right? I've been talking about this with friends in relationship to architecture. Like in a box, you can create a center from all corners, right? From all eight corners. You can create a center and create grounding, but a box in itself is a trap. You know what I mean? There's nothing occurring. Whereas a toroidal field, which is a circle, is something that is constantly being created from the center point. And it's just, it's just constantly creating itself.
It
Okay.
flows
Yeah.
like water, doesn't it? A toroidal field almost flows like a stream. It's constantly in flux, constantly changing, constantly evolving to the requirements. But when you dam that stream, you create a stagnant, deep area that nothing can pass through. And that's the cube.
Okay, I'm gonna quote my friend Nancy, who I've done some lives with, because she reminded us of something recently. And this is from the book The Prophecy of Ra Uruhu. So this is a human design reference. And this goes back to what we were talking about, the stars. And this will bring us back to this, possibly. So she says the Sirius B, so we got Sirius A and Sirius B. So her idea, or rather, Ra said that Sirius B is the dark star. We're kind of modifying this too to perceive it in a certain way, but Sirius B is the dark star that suddenly appeared in the sky and then sucked the life out of Sirius. So this is meaning to express that perhaps Sirius B is some kind of archonic entity, or being. And it resulted in 25% of our neutrino stream being filtered by this kind of vampirized Sirius. So thus affecting us and our planet and our frequencies and our awareness. And and there's some talk about how this could be like a metaphor for our experience of the vampire myths. Although, did you watch on Mind Unveiled? They did an amazing, like 2-3 hour special on vampire history.
No, I haven't watched it yet.
It's
No.
brilliant. It's brilliant. I mean, it's all kind of localized on the Earth. It's not like what we're doing here, but it's powerful still. So we're already, or it might be, she noted that we're already in an archonic realm in inverse, um, that had further negative intrusions. Um, but when she talks about the neutrino stream, what we're talking about is the neutrinos that are given off by all the planets, right? And the stars. And supposedly the neutrino stream that sent the transmission to Ra in 1987 was from a supernova that exploded. And a lot of people got it all around the world, but none of them got it coherently like he did, or not too many people did. And it just makes me think, that supernova that exploded, of what imprint was it? Was it a negative? You know what I mean? Archonic being that spoke to Ra? What was it? And also, what is this um, idea or construction or symbolism of the black box? Did that also come from the neutrino stream from Sirius B, right? Kind of infiltrating the neutrino stream of life of Sirius,
Yeah,
thus kind of, you know, putting us, because this black box symbolism is everywhere.
it is
I mean,
everywhere.
this is in all the ancient cults. This is in all the I find it everywhere in my reading of history. Like it's in all the civilizations, a lot of the early civilizations, not all, not maybe it's even in the native ones, but we know the native ones were usurped as well,
Yeah,
especially in South and North America. So another foreign installation, it seems so. If the Fibonacci sequence itself it's all the frequency products of that.
yeah. Keeps going back to it every time, doesn't it? Really, when you
Mhm.
start looking at, and the Fibonacci creates squares. So
What?
so every time the
That's it.
Fibonacci
That's it.
goes to the next bit, to the next bit, to the next bit, it creates the perfect square. So the Fibonacci is a square within the square within a square within a square. The Chris code isn't.
Wow. You said it all right there, man. We can all go home now. You
Thank you.
said it. We can all go home and forget about the details and sharing it all. We're out. That pinpointed it right there.
So the black cube is the Fibonacci sequence, which is the daisy of death, and it creates a box within a box within a box within a box, which is what we could call the onion that we have to again go through to peel away to get the enlightenment. So we have to peel the layers of the box away.
That sounds kind of arduous, man. I don't know. It's a
Yeah,
lot.
well, but we've done it. We're doing it, aren't we? That's why we're sat here. We've actually achieved that subconsciously.
I want there to be a visual, some kind of visual for it, right? Like, because if we think of architecture, God, even the pyramids, man, to some degree, it's boxes on top of boxes on top of boxes.
Well, if I show you this next slide, we have a pyramid within the pyramid within the
So then
12.
there's the ideas of false pyramids, right? And then the correct pyramids that we should be vibrating at, correct?
Yes, but this is the 12 grid system,
As
which
opposed to you were speaking of
the
the
well,
Fibonacci
if it's
as,
10, it's got 10, so it doesn't
all
have
right.
doesn't have this. But these are fields. These are energy fields. These are creating toroidal fields.
Is this what we want to visualize then in our auric field?
Um, I'm not 100% sure. Not this particular image, but something that's very interesting is if we look at this with the pyramid within the pyramid with the 12 grid and we go to this, we can then see the toroidal field around us, which is shown within the eye watching within the double triangle, which is actually
That's all the counterfeit system right there, right? We spoke
correct.
about that. There's the Ouroboros eating itself, no
Yeah,
source, right? The eye of Sirius B,
yeah.
perhaps.
We have the
And then
duality of the sun and the moon, the left side and the right side of the brain.
the symbols of air and water,
and fire
and fire, and earth.
and ether would be
We have
there.
a sigil down at the bottom. We have man and the devil.
Offering the elixir of life.
Omnia Vens Est. Did you do the Latin on that?
No, I didn't. No.
I could do it right now.
But this is what Maten was talking about earlier when we were talking about the snake or the infinity is actually eating itself. And potentially, this is the circle within that I was talking about within the Christian religion. And it's been split into four, which is the four quarters, which is the four seasons, which is the four ages.
Interesting. Oh yeah, and I forgot all the planetary archons are there too.
Yes, they are.
And there's some Hebrew there in the bottom part of the circle. If anyone can read Hebrew in the chat, do tell. And then the letters too, the gematria in the circle around the sigil. Very strange sigil. Let me do the Latin. Is that VN? Can you read to me the middle
Yeah,
part of the Latin?
yeah. It begins with OMNIAVNVSEST.
Okay, got it. Right now it's translating it from Latin to Latin, so I gotta find English. And this is a classic like symbol or imagery, of everything is fine.
Is that what it says?
That's
Everything
great.
is fine. Don't
That's
worry.
great.
Don't look. Just carry on going.
That's great.
Because we also get this with Freemasonry, which is exactly the same sigil. Just the more modern version of what we've just seen. We have the triangle within the triangle, as above, so below.
The
Pyramid.
triangle within the triangle is the Merkaba field.
Yeah.
I mean, in energy work, that's what you create by using the 4 points in a room, is you use the top points and the one central point as one pyramid, and you do the reverse, and then you have two interlaced pyramids, and then you're sitting in the pyramid. I think in the New Age version, right? You sit in it, those two pyramids, and then you spin it,
Yes.
and then you spin out of your body or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
So
I don't
obviously,
know that that's the one we should be,
no, 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 I don't think so. So
uh,
obviously, I showed that the Mercedes Benz is a cube. We have black cube, sorry, all over the world. But interestingly, this is ground zero 9/11, and where the Twin Towers are sat are now a black cube within a black cube within a black cube.
start over. Oh, I see it. I see it. This is
See
this
it?
is what? Oh, this is New York. This is
This is
okay, got it. Got
9/11. This is ground zero.
it.
We
Wow.
have a cube within a cube within a cube, which are black, and two of them, which is a duality.
Wow. Great find. That's a brilliant picture.
So if you know what you're looking at within this kind of thing, you can then see these things.
Is this duality for the past and the future?
Well, I think it's a spell of some sort. I don't think it's a good spell.
And it'll relate to Janus and
Yes.
probably the capturing of our minds in time. Because our minds are not our own, thus they're probably captured in this kind of double focus, right? Dichotomous view of the past and future, never in the present, never in stillness.
Well, this is a classic Janus event because 9/11. is always a change from one thing to another because the 11 is like the doorway, represents the doorway of going through it. And it's very interesting that Donald Trump was the 45th and is the 47th president, which is 9/11. So he will bring great change as well because he is the 9/11 of the presidents.
Interesting. Wow. That's right on. The numerology is right there.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to the next one.
Now, this is the gateway of man, which is Cancer, and the gateway of the gods, which is Capricorn. We come in through Cancer, and when we die, we go out through Capricorn.
There's some I recently come across some other layers to this in terms of it seems the agreement is that we get out of here through, I mean, this is going to be layers, right? I mean,
Yeah,
there's the sun gate, right? There's other gates that the planets can represent, almost like in the concentric circles around us in this realm, it's almost as if different openings open up at different times
yeah,
or um different just as the planetary movements and alignments, what it reminds me of, as I was telling you or threatening you with, that I was going to watch the film Cube, right? And go off on it. And so I did rewatch half of it last night. And so in the film, it's great because you have all these characters that just wake up in this grand cube, right? And they don't know how they got there. They just, and they're dressed all similar. And each of them is different. There's one that's autistic, kind of resembling the rave, right? And of course, that one has the solution for what is the math that needs to be done correctly. While one of the characters was trying, first she was trying prime numbers, then she was trying ratios, then she was trying, none of it worked
yeah, yeah,
until the autistic guy was knew how to figure out, I think it was the ratio part. Or anyway, it was fascinating, but more to the point is that they were in a square, they were in squares within squares. So they were in a room and they realized too late that, well, on time, I guess, that the squares were moving inside of the squares. And at each juncture of movement, one would always open up into an escape
yeah.
gateway out of the cube.
Well. Isn't that interesting? Because we're about to go through that gateway. That's now coming up, I believe. Now, what I showed you here was the gateway of man and the gateway of the gods is actually Freemasonry. And what we have is George Washington here, and the stone up here is actually Capricorn, and this is the coffin, which is the representation of Capricorn, sorry, and the top, sorry, is Cancer. And if we look at the chariot, we have Cancer sitting on top of the knight's head on the chariot. See? The crab sits there.
Yeah, yeah.
But what's really, really interesting is we have the duality of the pillars, which is Janus, the twin-headed god,
How is it, Janus?
because all doorways are controlled by Janus, because
That's right.
Janus is the god of the doorways, who's also the god of the keys.
Yeah, yeah, we'll go to that picture soon. Do you know that the Thoth Tarot deck are interconnecting and
No.
interlacing? So the Chariot card, the top part that you were talking about, it's gateway at the top, the blue kind of arc, right?
Well,
So that's going to interconnect with another card that you can put in reverse on top of it, and it'll have it'll carry on that motif into the next card. And so all the card decks, the whole deck interlocks with each other. It's fascinating.
But also we have this little sigil down the bottom. This little looks like an N at the bottom. I tried to find
That
I
should be
haven't.
Hebrew. That should be Hebrew.
Well, the N is the representation of the four pillars and the cover. And to
Oh, yeah, yeah, symbolically, right?
yeah, symbolically. And we get that on the capstone in Freemasonry a lot. But what we've also got here in the Freemasonry part, which is related to the crab, is the beehive, because the crab is in the bee nebula. Cancer is in the bee nebula.
Brilliant. Yeah,
The beehive cluster,
the beehive
constellation
cluster is
Cancer.
fascinating.
And what do we have? We have the same kind of sigil or diagram that I showed further back up here, like this, and like this, and like this, which was frequency.
That star at the bottom there, the Danube Algrid, that star right now is conjunct, if I'm correct, the Aries vortex or the Aries vanishing point. So that's affecting us right now.
It's very interesting. So there's a frequency coming off that that's having an effect on us.
Mhm. Yeah, that bring up any did you want to go into now the coat of arms
I think
of
we should. I think
Vatican
that would be
City?
perfect.
Let
That's
me
the
go
end of
ahead.
my slideshow, so I'm going to stop sharing anyway. Um, I think we should.
Thanks so much. That was amazing, man. Amazing. Let me share this here.
Now, Maten and I were talking earlier, before we came on, and we were talking about Janus and the twin-headed god and the connection to all of this. And Janus is the god of actors, but he's also the god of keys. And the Vatican sigil is two keys, which is the duality of Janus. And so the Vatican worships Janus, the twin-headed god, who has connections with all the demonic gods. Fundamentally, it keeps coming back to it. So Janus is also the god of doorways, and that's where we get the name janitor from. Because when you want to go through a door, you have to call the janitor, who produces the key to
That's right.
unlock the door to allow you to enter.
Oh, well said. Wow.
And the pillars that we were showing in the Masonic, or the pillars behind me, look, I've got two pillars.
Me
That's
as
the
well.
duality, and so have you. That's the duality of Janus or Janus. That's the duality of. And it's the left brain and the right brain, the divine feminine and the divine masculine, which is also the representation of the sun and the moon in duality.
Say that last part again. Sorry, I missed that part. You're
So
saying the duality is representing the sun and moon?
Janus is both the sun and the moon. It's
Oh,
duality.
wow. That makes
Because
sense because
because
Janus is looking in the two directions.
two different directions always.
And is that why we have two keys? Is this the gateway of the night world and the day world?
Yes.
And then with the crosses, I will see it as the cross of matter. The fleur-de-lis symbol is everywhere. That's for royalty, I would imagine.
Yeah, I think it's
That's for their
also some.
specific bloodlines.
Yeah, but I think it's also magic, black magic, as in a control mechanism, because we see a lot of stars, and I didn't put the picture up, with their arms like this. And it's also the skull and crossbones, which
Wait,
relates
who's
to
doing that? Who's doing that? No, the image. What's the other image that you didn't put up that has that?
pop stars, pop stars and
Okay.
actors. And
Okay.
also that goes all the way to Anunnaki, who was the first Egyptian leader to go to a single god, and he has the crossed arm sigil.
There's so much about Akhenaten, and I think the Crater Earth guy did a whole episode on Akhenaten and the symbols which he used and how those kind of represented the whole parasite coming into the system.
Correct.
It's a brilliant episode. It's genius. I'll try to add it on the bottom at some
Because
point, but I
I
don't think it's on YouTube. It's on Rumble, I think.
because this is going to really freak you out as well. One of the old names of Janus was IA.
Yeah.
But you turn it round, the other way round, where most of our language has been reversed.
Yeah.
What do we then have?
We have the most ancient thing that's called forth presently as a modern thing, but it's ancient.
We have AI.
Yep. Wow.
The controller of this realm and the controller of the black box is AI. Metatron's cube is AI controlled system that goes back to whatever point in time. And that also links in, I believe, to Egyptian times when we had the half man, half beasts, because Chief Ironbush has said quite clearly that they were actually half robot, half man, and that was Janus or AI trying to escape, which then takes us back to now with the three dart finish and the transhumanism to try and escape out of here on the piggyback of somebody as we go from the Fibonacci to the Christ.
Beautifully said. I'm going to add to that that this is something Shane the Ruiner was talking about in his older videos. Not only were they half robot beings, but it's questionable whether they were ever really even here. And they're not just like recordings being remote controlled for to visually deceive us. Both remotely controlled, passing the Janus doorways of both the dream and the waking. Imagine that.
But
All the monsters are remote controlled, you know?
yeah, by AI. Because
Wow.
again, I'm sure it was certainly something that we used to do in the UK years ago. Because January is actually called January after Janus, and the 1st of January is homage to Janus. And what do we do on the 1st of January? You open the front door and you open the back door to let the 1 year out and 1 year back in. You open the gateway and allow Janus to walk through your house from one dimension to another.
Wow. That's brilliant. That's
Now,
brilliant.
anybody who's really interested in Janus, there's a guy called a YouTube channel called Black Sheep, and he does a Janus 101. So, Black Sheep, Janus 101, and this will blow your mind because I haven't even scratched the surface. And I think it's about 2 hours long, an hour and a half long, and he doesn't stop and he puts it all together.
Yeah, I watched that. You shared that with me. Definitely check that out. It's brilliant. He just goes through it and I think it's a good time for me to stop sharing
I
this.
agree. I agree. And it's probably a good time for us to pause proceedings because we've been going on quite a while.
I'm gonna do one more thing before we do though.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna share.
Oh yes, your amazing picture. The
So my
flag.
tapestry here is from a recent Achilles album. This is the House of the Black Geminus, right? Gemini, ruler of Gemini, right? So that would be Janus. And so I don't know how clear you guys can see this. I have a red infrared light bulb on it, and it's a red and black image. And so what you may or may not be able to see, but if you look up Achilles, the metal band and you look up their imagery on Facebook, you should be able to see this. This was a tapestry they're selling. It could be on their website too. Anyway, so it's their latest album, but it's Left Hand Path. They definitely study the left hand path. They're deep into certain left hand path mystics, like I never remember. But anyways, another time. And so there's two Latin phrases. There's two doorways. On one of the doorways is a Janus face. It's like two faces in different directions. And that's over there. And then we have the gateway there. And then on this side, we have another gateway. In Latin, that side means, I wrote it out because you're not going to be able to see the Latin from afar. Aram duem in fair, which is bring the altar God. So that's on the Janus, that's on the feminine side, because we have a Venus representation on top of that gateway. And on this side, it says, then write it down, quo modo manus, which is how do you stay? And on this side, on the image is a mask with no eyes, and then the two eyes are on the side. And then you have this inverted maze you see that points down. And on top, you have a serpent meeting a dragon rooster hybrid image. And then there's a mercurial figure with a spear on my left as well. And there's branches. And it's like a column, it's almost like a Roman column here. And this is two Roman columns with some symbols on it, two Roman columns on that side. And it's some kind of building with an upper part. Not sure what's behind it. There's some branches, some tree branches you could see. And anyway, just figure I'd share this interesting left-hand path representation. Oh, and the soldier, of course, in the foreground with his helmet on the ground and his sword on his left. And also on the pillar in the front, there's some ram symbolism. There's a griffin, and there's some other images I can't quite see. This might be an owl in the center. And on that one, that looks like a swan almost, something like that. And so yeah, I just thought I'd share that real quick with you guys. Very interesting left-hand path symbolism for Janus.
Because
Um,
isn't the left hand brain masculine and the right hand is the feminine?
correct, correct. So two gateways here, right? Two directions. And so again, we have what Gary's talking about, almost like how you were discussing at the end, almost like a foil, right? On the maze to the center of your higher self. It's like if you picture the movie Labyrinth, right? All kinds of foils in the maze, all kinds of traps. Just think of any film which has mazes, The Shining, right? All these mazes are kind of like metaphors for being lost in your own mind or your own soul and where to find the way out of here. And so this would be like a block represent a false kind of representation of an exit way, or maybe the true, and maybe you pick which side, or maybe there's something other behind it. As I said, there's so many layers to interpret this.
There is, there is.
But
It's
but yeah, cool.
fascinating. It's
Yeah,
fascinating.
I think we're going on 17 hours, it seems.
Yeah, no, I think we nearly hit the 20. I think we did well.
All right, man. It's been
Well,
great. Thanks so much. Thanks so much. I mean, you did that wonderful PowerPoint, man. Thanks for sharing it with us. And
I mean, we kind of discussed the rate we wanted to go, and I had a few images. I didn't want to overload it, and there was discussion points, and I think it flowed quite nicely. So, and thank you for your amazing mind, and the way you can put everything together in a completely different way to me. But we come from two completely different angles, really, but we're so complementary, which kind of just shows you that when you really look into this kind of stuff, the path is quite clear often.
yeah, amazing, man. There's so much here. Now I don't have to defer. too many people to other videos because we got it all here. We got a
We have.
lot of plus the sources outwards.
Yeah.
Probably my best vid, our best vid up to date, man. Thanks so much.
No, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much.
I'm gonna go ahead and stop the recording for everyone. You guys in the chat, thanks so much for joining. Really
Yes.
appreciate you.
Yeah.
Uh,
Thank you very much. I do apologize. I haven't looked at it, but to concentrate on what I'm doing and try and get everything across, I have to concentrate, and reading takes too much effort for me, and I lose my thread. And I really didn't want to do that tonight because I knew it was going to be a big one. So,
no, I needed you to keep going so I can just add in here and there. Twilight Mist added something pretty amazing. Um, she said January is the dead month. The days
yes.
that are not recorded in the Roman calendar system too, but are observed as a break, pause, and observable calendar time, just like you said, just like you noted in your own words, it's a trap, it's a foist, it's a foil, right?
Yeah.
Of Janus finding its way in and out.
Yeah.
All right, man, thanks so much.
Fascinating.
I'm gonna press stop and then we can keep
Yeah.
chatting.
Yeah.
Press
Yeah.
stop
Thank you
on
very
yours.
much, everybody. Blessings. Please like, share, and subscribe. You know, really is.
Tell me your YouTube channel, Gary.
Yeah, my YouTube channel is Alternative Interactions, and I've also got a Telegram channel of the same name. And on the Telegram channel, I do put up all this information, so it's uncensored, and you get the whole lot. So all the images and all the bits and pieces are all there. So
All right, man. Thanks again. And mine is plutonicplanes.com. You guys know me. And we'll see you guys next time.
bye, everyone. Thank you. Bye.